Chapter 49:21. But at the same time, she knew that Wen Yuan was right. She really should work harder for Cymbidium Chinense. When Yuan left, Su Mu went to see her son. When she came back, she couldn't fall asleep after taking a shower, so she put on her pajamas and went to the window when Yuan's words kept ringing in her mind. Su Mu knew that Wen Yuan was right, but she didn't know what to do. If it was like what Wen Yuan said, she really wanted to have a close relationship with the Yi family. She didn't want that. First, it would be troublesome. Second, she really didn't want to face Yi Xiangnan. Although they had been husband and wife twice, she didn't feel anything. It was probably because she didn't like it or love it. Other than fear and nervousness, there was nothing else. Su Mu stayed quietly. Suddenly, her phone on the bed rang. She walked over to take a look. It was from Shen Wenxuan. "Are you asleep?" "I'm just done." Su Mu stared at the line of words. Her vision was a little blurry. She suddenly felt that those things from long ago had come back. Her heart was very hot, and something was about to jump out, but she held it back. Su Mu took the phone and typed one word at a time. "I'm going to sleep soon." "Okay, sleep early." Su Mu replied with one word. After that, he didn't send her any more messages. But the next day, when Su Mu got off work from the morning shift, she picked up some Cymbidium Chinense and went home. She saw Shen Wenxuan downstairs. Shen Wenxuan got out of a white BMW and looked at the big and small pair with a smile. Cymbidium Chinense was stunned. Then it instinctively looked at its mother and clenched its little hands. After a brief daze, Su Mu smiled lightly. Then she squatted down and said softly, "Cymbidium Chinense, this is Uncle Shen." "Hello, Uncle Shen." Cymbidium Chinense greeted him obediently. He quite liked this uncle. He looked very gentle. He seemed to like his mother. That was how the fathers of the children in class looked at their mothers. Cymbidium Chinense couldn't help but look at her mother. Su Mu felt rather uncomfortable. She walked over and asked, "How did you find this place?" "I asked Lawyer Chun." Shen Wenxuan smiled. "Let's go eat. Are you hungry?" Cymbidium Chinense was quite honest. Today's school lunch was terrible. Su Mu was a little distressed, but she just touched his little head and didn't say anything else. Shen Wenxuan picked up the little fellow and said, "All right, let's go eat. Let's find a restaurant that children like." "Okay?" Su Mu looked at him and wanted to refuse. "It's too much trouble for you." Shen Wenxuan glanced at her and placed the little Cymbidium Chinense in the back seat of the car and fastened the seatbelt for him. Then he opened the door to the front passenger seat for her. "Get in the car. I'm off today." Su Mu looked at him. Was it true? She always felt that this was not good. She was a little embarrassed and uneasy. After all, they hadn't seen each other for many years. She suddenly had a son. She didn't know if Shen Wenxuan meant that, but she felt that he was the only one she could find. She admitted that she felt inferior. Perhaps many years ago, Su Mu still felt that her talent was enough to match Shen Wenxuan. But after many years, she no longer had this confidence. He was a prospective lawyer, and she was just a shoe seller. She suddenly felt inferior and sat in the car without saying anything. Shen Wenxuan frowned and said gently, "What's wrong?" Chapter 49:22. Shen Wenxuan was very gentle. Although he had been in the workplace for a few years, the feeling he gave Su Mu was still the same as before. Su Mu couldn't feel the changes of time in him, but he was a little more mature than before. But she still felt that it was inappropriate. She probably knew what he was thinking, but she couldn't refuse him since he didn't say it. They didn't talk much along the way until Shen Wenxuan parked the car in front of a restaurant. "We're here. There's a children's meal that Cymbidium Chinense likes. My sister had it once when she came back to China last time. It was very good." Su Mu smiled lightly. "Your sister's child is very old, right?" Shen Wenxuan smiled. "Yes, she's almost 10 years old. I'll take you to see her next time she comes back. Cymbidium Chinense should like it too. Children always like to play with other children." He paused for a moment. "It'll be more lively with more children." Su Mu didn't know how to respond to this, so she didn't speak for a long time. Shen Wenxuan got out of the car and carried Cymbidium Chinense from the back seat. Su Mu followed. She looked at Shen Wenxuan and smiled. "Thank you." Shen Wenxuan stood there and smiled. What are you thanking me for? We have to eat when we meet old friends. Besides, Cymbidium Chinense is hungry. He lowered his head. Isn't that right, Cymbidium Chinense? Cymbidium Chinense's little face was slightly red. He looked at his mother and then at his uncle. He liked this uncle very much, but he was afraid that his mother would be unhappy if he said something wrong. How could Sumu not know what the little guy was thinking? She reached out and touched his head. Okay, let's go in. The three of them went in and sat down by the window. Shen Wenxuan ordered the food the whole time. After all, he and Sumu had been together for a period of time, so he knew her taste, and children like the same things. Therefore, the meal was very enjoyable. Shen Wenxuan didn't mention anything else. He just kept talking to the Cymbidium Chinense. After dinner, it was almost 8 o'clock. It was also time for the children to sleep. Shen Wenxuan paid the bill and came back. Okay, we can go back now. Does Cymbidium Chinense have any homework to do? Cymbidium Chinense said proudly, I've done it in school. Shen Wenxuan smiled. How excellent. He held the little Cymbidium Chinense hand and walked outside. At the same time, he talked to Sumu. It was a very normal conversation. It was probably about Sumu's usual work hours. It was a very normal casual chat. However, they didn't know that the three of them, as well as the one who drove the same car later on, had been photographed by someone. On the same day, their pictures went on the hot search list. Hashtag Starlight CEO fiancé finds new love very quickly. It was sent to the top of the hot search. Soon, Shen Wenxuan's identity was revealed. It turned out to be Starlight's popular fried chicken. He dared to steal the boss's woman. It was very courageous. But soon, the comments of certain universities' alumni went out of the circle. Shen Wenxuan was Sumu's boyfriend in university. Very soon, an imaginary drama came out. When Sumu was dating Shen Wenxuan, she cheated on the CEO of Starlight. But after a few years, she still felt that old love was better. Therefore, a lot of Fujoshis were imagining how the CEO of Starlight lost. When Shen Wenxuan sent Sumu home, it was already the top of the hot search. But none of them were in the entertainment industry, and they didn't pay much attention to Weibo, so they didn't know. When Sumu got out of the car, her phone kept ringing. She looked at it. It turned out to be Yi Xiangnan. She felt a little uncomfortable, especially in front of Shen Wenxuan. So, she hung up. Chapter 49:23. Her phone rang again. She ignored it and said goodbye to Shen Wenxuan. Shen Wenxuan also got out of the car. He hugged Cymbidium Chinense and touched his little head. Then he said, hurry up and go back. Sumu nodded and went home with Cymbidium Chinense. Shen Wenxuan stood alone in the old apartment for a long time. When he met Sumu again, he almost instinctively decided what to do for himself. But Sumu was different. An unforeseen event had changed Sumu. She was still the same Sumu. It was just that life had polished her. She might not be willing to be with him. It wasn't that Shen Wenxuan didn't feel her faint rejection. But if it was so easy to give up, he wouldn't have been empty all these years. Sumu couldn't be said to be very good, but no one could replace her. Just as Shen Wenxuan was feeling complicated, a silver Bentley suddenly braked beside him. He knew the person who got out of the car. It was President Yi, who he saw at the weekly morning meeting. At this time, Yi Xiangnan's expression was particularly ugly. It could almost be described as gloomy. He jumped out of the car and only took a glance at Shen Wenxuan before going upstairs. Shen Wenxuan quietly got into the car. He sat in the car for about 5 minutes and finally drove away. The next day, he found out about the hot topic and why Yi Xiangnan came over at night. At this time, Yi Xiangnan knocked on the door. Sumu thought it was Shen Wenxuan and that she had dropped something in his car, so she opened the door without thinking. Shen. Then her expression froze. Why is it you? You thought it was lawyer Shen? Yi Xiangnan walked past her and entered. Cymbidium Chinense was about to take a shower. When he saw him come in, he stood by the door and didn't move. Yi Xiangnan raised his chin. Go take a shower and then go to sleep. Cymbidium Chinense didn't move. There was a hint of wariness in his eyes. He thought that his father would bully his mother. Yi Xiangnan felt a stab in his heart. This son of his was no longer close to him at all, just because Lin Lu had to answer a phone call. If it was any other time, he might have coaxed him, but now he was dominated by anger. He squatted down and restrained his emotions. Listen to me, go take a shower. Cymbidium chinense looked up at its mother. Sumu gave him a look, and Cymbidium chinense left. The little back view looked a little disappointed. After Cymbidium chinense leaves, Sumu asks quietly, "What's the matter, Mr. Yi?" Yi Xiangnan frowned. "Sumu, aren't you going to watch your words?" Sumu frowns. "Does my behavior have anything to do with Mr. Yi? Take a look at Weibo." Yi Xiangnan's voice is cold. Tonight's hot topic was once exposed, and it couldn't be removed. As soon as it was removed, it was replaced by a new one. He wore a green hat very much. Sumu stared at him for a while, and then lowered her head to browse Weibo. Then she saw that she and Shen Wenxuan became the male and female protagonists. Of course, there was also the one in front of her. Sumu is quite speechless. "I'm just an ordinary person. If a meal with a friend should be magnified like this, it can only mean that Mr. Yi is a public figure. You can make it clear that it has nothing to do with me. Do you think it will be so simple?" Yi Xiangnan's voice is cold. Sumu is a little angry. "Mr. Yi, what do you want? I'm not a public figure, and I have my own life. I can't see anyone all my life just because you're the president of Stars Entertainment. Do you mean that you want to be with Shan Wenxuan?" He squints and looks at her as if judging. Chapter 49-24. You are my child's mother. Yi Xianan said somewhat mercilessly, "After you accepted my mother's 10 million, I think you and the Yi family are bound together, and you don't belong to yourself anymore. I think Miss Su still understands the meaning of repaying kindness." Sumu just looked at him. His words were cruel but true. Indeed, when Yuan had just helped her solve a big problem, and when Yuan was very good to her, and Cymbidium chinense. Yi Xiangnan paused and continued, "Of course, we also have a way to solve it." He looked at Sumu and said softly, "When Cymbidium chinense returns to the Yi family, Miss Su can pursue her own happiness." Sumu's heart suddenly tightened. She looked at Yi Xiangnan in a daze. He said straightforwardly, "At that time, Miss Su and I will really have nothing to do with each other." Sumu's eyes were a little red. She said softly, "Yi Xiangnan, don't take advantage of your position to bully others." Yi Xiangnan smiled very lightly. Yes, he was bullying her. He was bullying her because she had no background. He also knew that she couldn't let go of Cymbidium chinense. That was why he could take advantage of her. Sumu confronted him for a long time and murmured, You can't take away Cymbidium chinense." "I can." Yi Xiangnan squinted and said very cruelly, "If she had to be with Shen Wenxuan, then he would do it." Sumu looked at him quietly. She also knew that it was like hitting a stone with an egg if she fought against him, and she would implicate Shen Wenxuan. No matter Shen Wenxuan was in Stars Entertainment or going out to set up a firm, it was no good to fight against Yi Xiangnan. Besides, she really didn't plan to be with him. Why should she implicate him? After a long silence, Sumu said, "I know, Mr. Yi." Her voice was the same as before, but it had lost its vitality. Yi Xiangnan could feel it too, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he waited for Cymbidium chinense to come out of the bathroom before hugging him. "Did you miss Daddy?" Cymbidium chinense just looked at him and lowered its head. He didn't say that he wanted to, nor did he say that he didn't want to. Yi Xiangnan smiled bitterly. He knew that his son was no longer close to him. Now, he was trying to take him back. Without Sumu's care, this child would not be happy. Therefore, when Yi Xiangnan left, he glanced at Sumu with a heavy gaze. Sumu didn't say anything. She just leaned against the wall. She felt that her life seemed to be tied to Yi Xiangnan's. Unless she gave him Cymbidium chinense or married him, it seemed that neither of these two possibilities would happen for the time being. Sumu was quiet, and there was no light in her eyes. Yi Xiangnan opened the door and went out. Sumu immediately closed the door and leaned against it as if he had a virus. Yi Xiangnan could feel it. He stood at the door and smoked a cigarette before leaving. On the way, he received a call from Yi Hui. Yi Hui's voice had an indescribable meaning. "Brother, you must be with sister-in-law, right?" He didn't say anything. Yihui said again, I saw the hot search. You must have threatened sister-in-law. The brother was speechless. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, she is not your sister-in-law. Then why do you care about her? Why do you care who she is dating? Yihui smiled and deliberately provoked him. Yi Xiangnan said coldly, I just don't want her affairs to affect Cymbidium Chinense. Chapter 49-25. Isn't that normal? It won't affect Cymbidium Chinense. Yihui smiled. Moreover, Su Mu will have to get married eventually. She can't just stay with you forever. If you don't get married, she can't get married. What kind of logic is that? Yi Xiangnan's face was a little dark. Yihui said again, Brother, think carefully. Are you in love with sister-in-law? If you are, you should quickly confess. Otherwise, it will be too late for you to regret it if someone else takes her away from you. I don't like her. Yi Xiangnan's voice was stiff. There was not a trace of humanity in it at all. Yihui's voice was very long. Is that so? Yi Xiangnan was a little impatient. Of course. What else can I do? Yihui was still smiling. Her temper was very good, as if she would never get angry. Often, Yi Xiangnan felt that she was not like the children of the Yi family. The children of the Yi family all had a temper, but Yihui was too gentle. She was so gentle that he felt that she had lost her personality. But thinking that with Yihui's conditions, she could be happy for a lifetime. If there were no accidents, he let her be. Besides, there was nothing bad about it. Yi Xiangnan was a little distracted. He didn't care what Yihui said again. Later, he hung up the phone. The next day, the trending topic finally died down. Yi Xiangnan met Shen Wenxuan in his office. In the big office, the atmosphere was subtle. The second secretary poured a cup of coffee and ran away. She didn't dare to stay and be bombarded. Shen Wenxuan was quite calm. When he knew about Su Mu's past, he had already accepted this kind of scene. Yi Xiangnan was still very polite to him. Lawyer Shen, please sit down. He was also too polite. At least, he didn't treat an ordinary subordinate. He sat opposite Shen Wenxuan, picked up a cup of coffee, and seemed to be drinking it casually. Shen Wenxuan said indifferently, Did you call me because of Su Mu? Yi Xiangnan was quite impressed by his straightforwardness. It was good. He didn't like to beat around the bush, so he nodded. Yes, Lawyer Shen should be clear about the relationship between Su Mu and me. We have a son, and we almost got married. My mother, or the Yi family, has never given up on Cymbidium Chinense, so you know what I mean. Shen Wenxuan asked calmly, CEO Yi, do you love Su Mu? Yi Xiangnan looked at him quietly. They all knew the answer. How could the noble Gongzi fall in love with someone so easily, especially an ordinary girl like Su Mu? In the story of Cinderella, the heroine was also very beautiful. Shen Wenxuan smiled bitterly. Since I don't love her, then I won't be happy after marrying her. Why would CEO Yi torture himself? In Stars Entertainment, he naturally knew about the relationship between CEO Yi and Qin Yihuan. It could be imagined who Yi Xiangnan had in his heart. Yi Xiangnan said indifferently, I don't think it's torture. Because for him, it was the same no matter who he married. He didn't think there was any difference. Shen Wenxuan was a man, so he could naturally understand what he meant. He was gentle and firm. It's unfair to Su Mu. Unfair? Yi Xiangnan smiled slightly. She can get the best compensation. Fame, wealth, and even everything. Her son will be the CEO of Stars Entertainment in the future. Lawyer Shen can also understand this. Shen Wenxuan smiled very lightly. This is not what Su Mu wants. CEO Yi, you don't know her at all. Chapter 49-26. Memorize. Yi Xiangnan stared at Shen Wenxuan. Is that so? Does that mean you know her very well? A little, Shen Wenxuan replied calmly. Yi Xiangnan narrowed his eyes. The man in front of him, whether it was his birth or his current status and power, could not be compared to him. Even if he had Su Mu's past, and perhaps Su Mu's heart. He didn't expect that after so many years of poverty, even though he was as rich as a country and had so many women at his fingertips, he still couldn't win Su Mu's heart. She didn't love him. Maybe there was a chance to love, but finally that night, Yi Xiangnan didn't pester him any further. After all, He was more concerned about his reputation and whether Shen Wenxuan would stay or not. He wasn't a person who couldn't distinguish between work and private matters. He hoped that Shen Wenxuan could stay. After all, after Lawyer Chen retired, the most suitable candidate was Shen Wenxuan. From a certain point of view, Yi Xiangnan admired talented people, and there were not many people who could gain Yi Xiangnan's admiration. In his eyes, some of the middle and upper echelons were useless, and Shen Wenxuan was one of them. Shen Wenxuan didn't think too much about it. CEO Yi, I've already decided. Yi Xiangnan looked at him for a while, then got up and walked to the French window. After a long time, he said in a low voice, Lawyer Chen should have told you about my plan. Shen Wenxuan, is it worth it for a woman? Is it worth it to walk this path until the end? As he spoke, he turned to look at Shen Wenxuan. Shen Wenxuan smiled faintly. Boss Yi, there's a person I love in my life plan. Love? Yi Xiangnan said hoarsely. You guys have been apart for so many years, and so many things have happened over the years. How do you know that she still likes you? So, I want to pursue her again. Shen Wenxian said in a low voice, his voice full of emotion. This was also the first time Yi Xiangnan had seen him like this. Lawyers had always been creatures with few emotions. Shen Wenxuan used to be the same. Yi Xiangnan had always thought that he would be the best successor, but it turned out that he was just as passionate. Shen Wenxuan left. Yi Xiangnan sat alone for a while. Not long after, he received a resignation letter. Shen Wenxuan left Starlight Entertainment in advance and paid a huge sum of money for breaching the contract. The Shen family's conditions weren't bad. $1,000,000 penalty wasn't a big problem for Shen Wenxian. Yi Xiangnan held the resignation letter in his hand and looked at it quietly. After a long time, he picked up the phone on the table and called Bai Ainan's number. Bai Ainan picked up the phone, and before he could speak, she said, You want to talk about Shen Wenxuan, right? Yes, I want to work with him. Shen Wenxuan is very capable. Xiangnan, I can't let go of money, can I? We are both businessmen. Think about it. He must be very busy setting up a law firm. I'm afraid he won't have time to pursue your wife. Yi Xiangnan frowned. Su Mu isn't my wife. Ex-wife? Ex-girlfriend? Or an illegitimate wife? The child's mother? Bai Ainan said gloatingly. Yi Xiangnan said coldly. You sound very happy. There's nothing to be happy about. Shouldn't we hug each other for warmth? Bai Ainan said meaningfully. Of course, she wasn't talking about Su Mu, but Qin Huan. In the Yi family, even a fool knew that Yi Xiangnan didn't like Su Mu and couldn't forget Qin Huan. He didn't give up on Su Mu because of the Cymbidium Chinense. He didn't force himself on her because of the Cymbidium Chinense. Bai Ainan sighed. Xiangnan, in fact, you can also have another choice, which is to give the Cymbidium Chinense the best, and then live in peace. The Cymbidium Chinense doesn't have to be the heir of the Yi family. Think about it. Shen Ting, an outsider, has become the decision-maker. Even if the Cymbidium Chinense follows Su Mu to another family, he is still your son. What's impossible? Yi Xiangnan pursed his lips. Bai Ainan asked again, Are you doing this because of the Cymbidium Chinense for your own face? Or because you can't let go of Su Mu? Have you thought about it? Of course, Yi Xiangnan wouldn't confide in her and hung up the phone. That night, he went back to Wen Yuan and Yi Mubai's place. Wen Yuan had picked up the Cymbidium Chinense because Su Mu was working at night. When the Cymbidium Chinense saw Yi Xiangnan, he called him Dad indifferently. After that, he didn't talk to him much. Yi Xiangnan sat next to him and played Lego with him silently. The Cymbidium Chinense glanced at him and then lowered his head to continue. Wen Yuan smiled. Isn't it good? In the future, when the Cymbidium Chinense comes over, you can come and accompany him. Children always need the company of their parents. She paused for a moment before talking about Su Mu's work. She sighed, it's a pity. The Cymbidium Chinense probably felt that the topic was related to him. He secretly looked at his grandmother and then continued playing Lego as if nothing had happened. Yi Xiangnan looked at his mother and asked casually, What did she say? She said she wanted to think about it. Wen Yuan told him the truth and then warned him, Don't stop her. I think Su Mu is a good seedling. Besides, she's still young. She can't live for the Cymbidium Chinense for the rest of her life. Yi Xiangnan leaned on the sofa and smiled faintly. Mom, didn't you become a full-time wife because of me and Yi Hui? As soon as he finished speaking, Wen Yuan laughed and scolded him. Marry her if you can. Yi Xiangnan, Wen Yuan sighed. Perhaps your personalities just don't match. If you can't force him, then you should just let him live. As for Yi Sun, he's your son after all. He'll always be your son no matter where he goes. No one can take him away from you. There was a deeper meaning to his words. Yi Xiangnan frowned. Mom, what you said, I'm not blind. There's so much commotion. Wen Yuan sighed. Xiangnan, you don't like Su Mu. If she really has someone she likes, let her go. This child is quite pitiful. She gave birth to the Cymbidium chinense for you at such a young age. Yi Xiangnan didn't say anything. He didn't agree or disagree. But no one expected that before Yi Xiangnan could do anything, the Shun family would make a move first. Shun Wenxuan's parents and sister were both abroad. No one knew how she got the news. 2 days later, Shun Wenyuan flew back to City B and made an appointment to meet Su Mu. The meeting place was booked by Shun Wenyuan. It was a high-class coffee shop. Su Mu went after work. Because she was in a hurry, she didn't have time to change out of her work clothes. She sat opposite Su Wenyuan. In the past, she and Su Wenyuan had met once or twice. At that time, Shun Wenyuan had been polite to her, unlike this time, who was neither cold nor warm. Her gaze was even a little harsh. Shun Wenyuan ordered a cup of coffee for her and then went straight to the point. Miss Su, why didn't name a price? Chapter 49:27. Shun Wenyuan automatically ordered a cup of coffee for her and then went straight to the point. Miss Su, why don't you name a price? Su Mu looked up and stared at Shun Wenyuan. After a while, she said softly, I don't know what you mean. Shun Wenyuan came from a good family and married well. She was used to living a comfortable life and didn't know the taste of suffering. Besides, Su Mu was pregnant out of wedlock and had an ambiguous relationship with her younger brother. Of course, she didn't have a good impression of Su Mu, nor would she be nice to her. This time, she came back under the order of her parents to solve this problem. No matter what, she couldn't let Wen Xin continue to make mistakes and marry a woman who gave birth to a child out of wedlock. In terms of qualifications, reputation, and appearance, Su Mu wasn't good in any of them. In the past, she might have had some talent that made the Shun family look at her differently, but now, it was polite to say that she was worthless. She gave birth to a son for the Yi family, but the Yi family didn't let her marry into the family. Now, they were forcing her to marry Wen Xian. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Just thinking about it made Shun Wenyuan feel even more disgusted. The way she looked at Su Mu became even more impolite and even a little contemptuous. Miss Su, don't pretend to be innocent. I know what girls like you think. Don't you just want money or a high status? Let me tell you now, our Wen Xian will never be a taker. Even if he can't survive and be city, he can go abroad and have me and my parents to take care of him. The Shin family's property is enough for him to live a carefree life for the rest of his life. But Miss Su, it's different. I heard that your mother broke off relations with you and even published your name in the newspaper. Our Shin family can't tolerate a reputation like yours. Su Mu was so angry that her fingers were trembling. She held the cup and tried her best to steady it. Her lowered eyes revealed no emotions. After a long time, she looked up at the domineering woman in front of her and said softly, Miss Shun, Shun Wenxuan and I are in the past. I've never thought about anything else. If you're worried, you can follow him around every day. Shun Wenyuan didn't expect that a lowly person like Su Mu would dare to refute her words like this. And she even raised herself so much, as if it was Wen Xian who took the initiative to pester her. Her voice was cold as she said rudely, Miss Su is eloquent, but I'm not here to learn from Miss Su's eloquence today. I just want Miss Su to promise not to meet Wen Xian in the future. That's all. Name your price. Su Mu stared at her. The other party's attitude was especially arrogant, as if she could take out money and knock her out at any time. Su Mu said very softly, 100 million. Will you give it to me? What? Shin Wenxuan's face couldn't hold back any longer. He almost lost his composure as he said, Su Mu, don't push your luck. 100 million. Why don't you just rob a bank? Since you can come over and throw money at me, you should be able to afford it. Su Mu's expression was a little cold as well. So, excuse me, Miss Shun. She stood up and was about to leave. Shun Wenyuan was so angry that she lost her composure and grabbed onto Su Mu, forgetting her status. A cup of coffee was splashed onto Su Mu's face. It was very hot. Very quickly, Su Mu's face was a little red, but it wasn't to the point of injury. She just looked a little embarrassed and embarrassed. She looked up and wanted to say something, but a pair of hands pressed down on her shoulders. It was a very gentle force. Su Mu was a little surprised and turned her head. It was Wen Yuan. Wen Yuan was drinking coffee with Yi Huan and talking about introducing Su Mu to Yi Huan so that Yi Huan could teach Su Mu a lesson. He didn't want to witness such a scene. Originally, it wasn't convenient for him to intervene. After all, it was Su Mu's personal matter. But he didn't expect the other party to be so domineering and unreasonable. Yi Huan and Wen Yuan both felt that in a place like B City, even the two of them and Bai surely wouldn't do such a thing. Who was the Shun family? They had never heard of it. They were just a little rich. In the circle of B City, one couldn't enter without power. The Shun family was really not ranked. At this time, Wen Yuan was going to come out no matter what. He pressed down on Su Mu and said in a low voice, "Wipe your face first and leave it to me." Su Mu was stunned. She wanted to say something. Her lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Yi Huan pulled her over and handed her a tissue. And when Yuan had a faint smile on his face, Shun Wen Yuan was shocked. She didn't expect to meet Wen Yuan. Wen Yuan, Yi Mubai's wife, was also considered the boss of Wen Xian. Now, was Wen Yuan going to stand up for Su Mu? It was obvious that the Yi family didn't want Su Mu. How could it be? Just as she was thinking about it, Wen Yuan said in a calm tone, "Miss Shun, you may be mistaken. It's not that our Xiangnan doesn't want Su Mu. It's that Su Mu refuses to marry into the Yi family. We thought that Su Mu has high standards and we can't force it. We are happy and blessed that Su Mu is willing to look up to Lawyer Shun, but we didn't expect the Shun family's attitude to be like this. Since this is the case, we can't force it. But Miss Shun is too petty and ungentlemanly." This cup of coffee was poured on Su Mu's face, but it's the same as splashing on my face and the Yi family's face. No one dares to disrespect the Yi family like this. The Yi family? Shun Wenyuan's heart trembled when she caught this information. Wen Yuan smiled faintly. "Miss Shun, how do you think today's matter should be resolved?" Shun Wenyuan felt that she must find out now, when did Su Mu become a member of the Yi family. What's the relationship between Miss Su and the Yi family now? She asked in a trembling voice. Wen Yuan smiled faintly and calmly. "I intend to accept Su Mu as my goddaughter. Miss Shun, do you think my goddaughter is qualified to marry into the Shun family?" These words made Shun Wenyuan speechless. It was not her intention to say that it was not enough. Her face turned pale. She knew that today's matter could not be resolved peacefully. Wen Yuan would not let her go easily. After a long time, she said softly, "Madam Yi, it's my fault today." Wen Yuan smiled. "You are very sensible. You don't need me to teach you what to do, do you?" His tone was still light and calm. People were often like this. The higher they stood, the less flustered and exasperated they were. Only the nouveau riche would think that the world revolved around them and talk about money every time they opened their mouths. Shun Wenyuan was a mean person, but she was also very smart. She forced a smile and then picked up a cup of coffee on the table. When she was about to move, Wen Yuan stopped her. "Wait a minute." She thought that Wen Yuan would let her go, but Wen Yuan said to the waiter, "Give me a hot cup." Shun Wen Yuan was stunned at once. She did not expect that Wen Yuan would do this. Chapter 49-28. Shun Wen Yuan was truly stunned. She did not expect Wen Yuan to treat her like that. She was at least a little famous in B City and could be considered a socialite, but Wen Yuan treated her like that. While his face was pale, the waiter brought a cup of hot coffee over. It wouldn't hurt, but it would definitely make him very uncomfortable. The waiter was very polite. "Miss, your coffee." Shun Wen Yuan was very embarrassed. She looked at Wen Yuan. Wen Yuan sat down calmly, looking very patient. Shen Wenyuan knew that she was in trouble. She had no choice but to accept the cup of coffee that day. So, she gritted her teeth, raised the cup with her eyes closed, and poured it over her head. The surroundings were quiet. Everyone was watching the drama unfold. After the cup of coffee was poured, Wenyuan smiled faintly. Miss Shun, take it as a lesson. At the same time, I'll teach you how to behave. After saying that, he took his bag and walked towards Sumu. Suddenly, he turned around. Even our Xiangnan can't bully her. Well, why do you have to bully her? Those words made Shen Wenyuan even more embarrassed. She stood there and accepted the mocking gazes. She had never been so embarrassed since she was young. So, she gritted her teeth in anger. Sumu, don't even think about entering the Shun family. One had to admit that this big sister was really good at acting out. Sumu had already said that she had no intentions. She herself did not have 100 million. On the other side, when Yuan looked at Sumu gently and lovingly, it's almost too late. I'll go with you to pick up some Bidium Chinese. After the storm, it was indeed too late. So, the two of them got into the driver's car together. In the car, when Yuan slowly explained his plans. He wanted Sumu to continue her studies in media. In addition, he also arranged for her to learn how to make movies and documentaries from Yuan. Not everyone had the opportunity to have such connections and resources. Sumu was silent for a while. When Yuan said softly, "Are you still hesitating now? Look at how Shun Wenyuan can climb over your head and bully you as she pleases today. Who will appear tomorrow? Cymbidium Chinense is still young. He won't always be a child. He needs a strong person on his path of growth. If that person isn't Xiangnan, it has to be you." Sumu's lips moved. When Yuan smiled lightly. "Don't you think so?" Sumu knew that she was right. That's right. Today, she had deeply experienced how important social status was to a person and how much confidence it could bring to a person. When Yuan picked up some Bidium Chinese with her, after sending the mother and son back, they left. It was already late. Sumu was cooking quietly. Cymbidium Chinese kept feeling that there was something wrong with his mother today. However, he didn't dare to ask. He could only lean on Sumu. Sumu lowered her head and looked at him. Then she smiled slightly. "What's wrong, Cymbidium Chinese?" "Mom," Cymbidium Chinese said softly. "A child said that I don't have a father." Sumu's heart ached. She squatted down and reached out to touch his little head. "How can Cymbidium Chinese not have a father?" "Cymbidium Chinese just doesn't have a father." Cymbidium Chinese looked straight at Sumu. He suddenly said, "Mom, what about Uncle Shun?" His little face revealed a trace of longing. Sumu was stunned for a moment. Then she said softly, "Uncle Shun is Uncle Shun." Chapter 49-29. Sumu was stunned for a moment. Then she said softly, "Uncle Shun is Uncle Shun. Will he come again? Will he take us out for dinner?" Cymbidium Chinese asked carefully, "What do you want to eat?" "Mummy will take you out." Sumu was stunned for a moment. Then she said softly, "Uncle Shun is Uncle Shun. Will he come again? Will he take us out for dinner?" Cymbidium Chinese asked carefully. But Cymbidium Chinese suddenly hugged her, his small body soft and warm. Sumu's heart softened, but her eyes were a little watery. She tried her best to hold it in. She was Cymbidium Chinese's mother. She couldn't cry in front of her child. Cymbidium Chinese only asked about the things in school, but Sumu knew that he was very concerned about it. She thought that maybe she really should listen to Wenyuan's advice. She worked so hard to make Cymbidium Chinese have enough to eat, but she couldn't give him respect and protect him from being hurt by rumors. She squatted down and touched her son's face gently, saying softly, "Mummy might have to go to school too. I will work hard with Cymbidium Chinese in the future." Also, Mummy had no family. Other than Daddy, Mummy had no one else. Cymbidium Chinese was the only one she had. Cymbidium Chinese was very surprised, staring at her. Sumu hugged him, feeling his warm little body. When Yuan was right, she was only 24 years old. She should make plans for Cymbidium Chinese, but at the same time, she was not only Cymbidium Chinese's mother, but also Sumu. She should live like herself, not live as an accessory in someone else's life. Asterisk at the same time. Shen Wenyuan flew into a rage at Shen Wenshuan. In Shen Wenshuan's luxurious condominium, Shen Wenyuan's words were very rude. Wenshuan, how can you not forget such a shameless woman? Don't you know that she had a child with someone else? How old is that child? If you're with her, how are you going to go out in the future? How will others look at you? Picking up Yi Xiangnan's old shoes? Shen Wenyuan. Shen Wenshuan stared at her. What exactly do you want? What did you do to Sumu? What did I do? Why don't you ask her what she did to your sister? I'm just giving her a price to leave you. This is also what Dad and Mom want. Do you know that she's asking for 100 million the moment she opens her mouth? I've never seen such a shameless girl. Who does she think she is? Shen Wenyuan was probably furious as she desperately vented her anger. Shen Wenshuan calmed down and looked at his sister quietly. I know what kind of person Sumu is. What do you know? Shen Wenyuan sneered. Do you know that she's connected to the Yi family? The Yi family is supporting her. Wenshuan, don't hit the wall. I've already spoken to Dad and Mom about this. They've already found a girl for you. She's quite nice, and she's a little famous for playing the violin. I've seen her photos. Her looks are way better than Sumu's. She has a good personality and temper. You like her. Shen Wenshuan looked down. How would you know whether I like her or not? Shen Wenyuan said matter-of-factly, marriages are all about matching families. You and Sumu are not compatible in any way. Besides, she is a child, so it won't help your career at all. Shen Wenshuan frowned. I don't need anyone's help. After he said that, Shen Wenyuan sneered again. Everyone likes the icing on the cake. Wenshuan, her father, is the principal of Media College. You know how important that is. Dad and Mom are doing this for your own good. They've given you ample consideration when choosing a partner. Besides, even if they don't consider all this, you'll still need funds if you want to set up an agency. You can fork out a few million, but I think you'll still need Dad and Mom's support for 20 to 30 million. This isn't something that Sumu can help you with. Think about it carefully. You're not a child anymore, so don't let your emotions get the better of you. Shen Wenshuan looked at his sister quietly. She seemed a little unfamiliar, as though he didn't know her at all. He remembered that many years ago, Shen Wenyuan had fallen in love with a man from an ordinary family. Her parents naturally disapproved of it. Shen Wenyuan ran away from home and pretended to jump off a building, causing a huge ruckus. Chapter 49:30. But after a few years, she, who had married well, didn't even have the slightest bit of affection for him. In her heart, there was only profit and profit. Could the environment really change a person? Shen Wenshuan said calmly, I can solve it myself. I don't need my family's support. Shen Wenyuan was stunned. The corners of her eyes were twitching. She looked at her brother in disbelief and murmured, Is it worth it for a woman? Shen Wenshuan said firmly, I like her. I want her to be my wife, sister. That's it. It couldn't be anyone else but her. With that, he opened the door and walked out. Shen Wenyuan came back to her senses and shouted behind him, You'll regret it. You'll kill yourself. No, she couldn't let him go against the Yi family. She couldn't let her brother be with such a woman. Otherwise, when Shen's life would be over. However, she couldn't represent anyone, and she couldn't decide anything for others. Shen Wenshuan could decide anything for himself. When he met Sumu again, he didn't even think about it before betting everything on his future, career, marriage, and even family. He drove to Sumu's old apartment and parked the car downstairs, but he didn't go up. He just stood quietly under an old tree and smoked. He held a cell phone in his other hand, hesitating whether or not to call her. Sumu went downstairs to take out the trash and saw Shen Wenshuan standing there. She was stunned for a moment, but she still walked over slowly. Why are you here? She stood in front of him and asked softly. Shen Wenshuan also looked at her quietly and smiled slightly. I just happened to pass by. Neither of them mentioned Shen Wenyuan, but they both knew that the other knew. It wasn't a pleasant matter, and if they were to talk about it, they would definitely talk about something else. He couldn't give her a promise right now, and she didn't think about it. The two of them stood face to face. After a long time, Shen Wenshuan said, Have you eaten? Yes, what about you? Sumu guessed. If you haven't eaten, I'll give you the next bowl of noodles. Shen Wenxuan hesitated for a second, then smiled. Okay. Su Mu threw away the trash and went back to the small house with him. It was very simple, but he felt at ease. As soon as Shen Wenxuan entered, Cymbidium Chinense happily rushed over. Uncle Shen. Shen Wenxuan picked him up and kissed his forehead. Are you happy to see me? Cymbidium Chinense said very sweetly that it was happy, and then hugged his neck worriedly. Su Mu watched their interaction and quietly went to the kitchen. Her eyes were a little hot. She knew that if it hadn't been for the accident, she would have married Shen Wenxuan and had a smart child like Cymbidium Chinense. She would have lived an ordinary but happy life. However, there were no ifs in life. They had missed each other. She was no longer a naive little girl who thought that they could be together as long as they truly loved each other. Relationships that didn't receive blessings usually had a bleak ending. She cut the ginger and thought absent-mindedly, he must be very sad. She knew that Shen Wenxuan wanted to persist, but sometimes persistence couldn't overcome reality. They couldn't afford to wait for each other. After spending 10 minutes, she made a bowl of noodles and brought it out. The aroma filled the air. Cymbidium Chinense said proudly, My mother makes the best noodles. Shen Wenxuan smiled. It smells good. Cymbidium Chinense was even more proud. Chapter 49:31. Updated quickly, Cymbidium Chinense was even prouder. He looked at Shen Wenxuan and said, Uncle, try it. Shen Wenxuan smiled, and then looked at Su Mu deeply. Such a calm and warm moment would probably not last long in the future. Shen Wenxuan was a gentle and determined person, and at the same time, he was also pragmatic. They were all adults, and they knew that love wasn't enough. He could give her a stable life now, but it didn't include so many external pressures. Shen Wenxuan sat down and ate the noodles. It was delicious. There was a feeling that when you came back from outside, your wife had already prepared dinner. Originally, they could have spent the rest of their lives together like this. Shen Wenxuan originally wanted to go out, but because he was waiting for Su Mu, he didn't give up, so he stayed. Su Mu was there, but they weren't the same anymore. Shen Wenxuan finished eating the noodles, looked up, and smiled. It's really delicious. Little Cymbidium Chinense wanted to be proud, but the little person also saw that something was wrong with Uncle Shen, as if he was about to cry, so he lowered his head dejectedly. Mom, I'm going to take a shower. Su Mu smiled, and little Cymbidium Chinense ran away. Shen Wenxuan sat in front of the simple, small dining table. He wanted to smoke, but he gave up when he thought that he was indoors. He turned his head and looked at Su Mu quietly. I thought that people who like each other would get married soon. Su Mu was quite indifferent. After cleaning up the bowls, he sat opposite to Shen Wenxuan. Shen Wenxuan, let bygones be bygones. Don't think about it anymore. Really, I don't think your life should be tied with mine. It won't do you any good. You think so? Shen Wenxuan smiled bitterly. Yes, he was already 27 years old. He was no longer a young boy. He couldn't say that he wanted her to follow him regardless of everything, and it was even more impossible. After Shen Wenxuan finished speaking, Su Mu smiled slightly. She knew everything. He was in a difficult position, and he didn't dare to let go. She was the same. In the adult world, love couldn't solve everything. She didn't want to implicate him either. Their eyes met, and in the end, they did not say anything. Cymbidium Chinense finished showering and rolled under the blanket. It was getting late, so Su Mu walked him downstairs. When they got downstairs, Shen Wenxuan reached out to open the car door. He paused for a moment and turned back to look at Su Mu. I apologize on behalf of my sister. Su Mu shook her head. She's not that good either. Besides, this had nothing to do with Shen Wenxuan. He didn't need to apologize. Shen Wenxuan knew that Su Mu was never weak, but he also knew how strong his sister was. Shen Wenyuan, who used to be crazy for love, was long gone. Su Mu didn't say anything else. She just stood under the streetlight and smiled calmly. Shen Wenxuan didn't say anything else. He opened the car door and got into the car. After getting in, he rolled down the window. Su Mu, she grunted, just like in the past. Shun Wenxuan's gaze deepened. After a while, he said, I'm leaving. He didn't say anything else, because he would only burden Su Mu. Adult love has always been related to reality. After Shun Wenxuan left, Su Mu stood there for a long time. When she was about to go back, a black sports car screeched to a stop next to her. It was none other than Yi Xiangnan. When he arrived, he bumped into Shun Wenxuan. At this moment, he got out of the car, and his expression was naturally not very good. He walked to Su Mu. Su Mu looked at him. Are you here to see Cymbidium chinense? As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xiangnan held her shoulders. The next second, she fell into his arms. Chapter 49:32. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xiangnan held her shoulders. The next second, she fell into his arms. Her nose was full of warm breath. Su Mu's face was a little hot. After a long time, she came to her senses and said in a low voice, Yi Xiangnan, let me go. Flirting all day long, he said in a hoarse voice. Obviously, he looked so ordinary. Su Mu bit her lips. Yi Xiangnan, tell me clearly who is flirting? But as soon as she finished asking, she couldn't say anything anymore. Her fingers clenched in a fist on his shoulders, and her voice was also broken. Let go of me. But not only did he not let go, but he went even further. When he let go of her, Su Mu couldn't help but slap him in the face. This was the second time she slapped him. Yi Xiangnan was a little angry. He grabbed her hand and raised his hand high, as if he was going to slap her back. Su Mu didn't avoid it, but just stared at him. Yi Xiangnan sneered. When facing Shun Wenxuan, you are as gentle as water, but when you see me, you look like you have seen a ghost. Is he so good? Don't forget that the person who was your wife was me, and you didn't refuse him that day. Why? If you knew that you would meet him, you wouldn't have moved to my place. Do you regret it now? Su Mu stared at him. Yi Xiangnan sneered again and said in a low voice, Give me Cymbidium chinense, and I will set you free. Su Mu pushed him away suddenly, and she smiled a little mockingly. Mr. Yi, do you think I am a 3-year-old child? If I give you Cymbidium chinense, will you really let me go? No, he wouldn't. He would never allow the mother of Cymbidium chinense to marry someone else. This was the domineering way of the rich. She couldn't understand it, but she could imagine it. Yi Xiangnan smiled faintly. He placed his finger on his lips and did not deny it. This was also the main reason why Su Mu gave up on Shun Wenxuan. It was not because of the Shun family, but because of Yi Xiangnan. She couldn't let Shun Wenxuan's every step become difficult because of her. He had his dreams and his career. There was really no need for him to sacrifice everything for her. People could be a little selfish, but not too selfish. Su Mu stepped back while Yi Xiangnan put his hand in his pocket and said faintly, I just came to tell you that Cymbidium chinense will stay at my parents' place from tomorrow onwards. As for you, I can live here. Su Mu said lightly, You don't have to worry about it, Mr. Yi. Yi Xiangnan frowned and smiled. Su Mu, sometimes you really have no conscience. To put it bluntly, you are a traitor. It has always been the Yi family who has helped you. As for Shun Wenxuan's sister, I don't need to remind you what she did today. Why are you still helping her? You're guarding against me like a thief. After all, I'm also the father of Cymbidium chinense. Su Mu suppressed herself. Cymbidium chinense is Cymbidium chinense. I am me. Yi Xiangnan stared at her and said very slowly, It seems that in your heart, you still want to be with Shun Wenxuan one day. But Su Mu, I can tell you that it is absolutely impossible. Su Mu stared at him with her eyes full of resistance and disgust. She really didn't like him at all. She hated him so much. You will be willing to go to the Yi family. Yi Xiangnan walked forward and reached out to pinch her chin. You'd better get rid of the things that shouldn't be in your heart. Don't let me know that you are thinking about someone else. Draw 3 movie tickets. How to get them? Open the red envelope on Alipay. Enter the password. Happy birthday, Jean Jean. First come, first served. Chapter 49:33. Updated quickly after saying that. He let go of her. He took a step back and looked at her. Su Mu's lips were tightly pursed as he looked at him quietly. Even if there was no relationship between them, it was still unfair. Without any relationship, all of her major decisions in private life were decided by the Yi family. Wen Yuan had good intentions, but it was also a form of restraint. Sumu was very sober. She had a person in her heart, but he might be buried in her heart forever. If she didn't want Shan Wenxuan to die with her, then she must let go of this person. Sumu said softly, "Yi Xiangnan, we can take our time. You will be the one to get married first." "Is that so?" He smiled, looked at her again, and then slowly walked upstairs. Sumu called him from behind, "Yi Xiangnan." He paused and turned his head to look at him. Sumu said softly, "You think marriage can be without love and loyalty, don't you?" He didn't speak and still looked at her with deep eyes. Sumu smiled a little bitterly, "But I'm not," she paused and said bitterly, "I'm still looking forward to marriage. I don't think marriage is like that. It's not what I want, nor is it what Cymbidium Chinense thinks. Mr. Yi, you too. You shouldn't stop looking forward to it so early. You should find a woman you love to get married." Yi Xiangnan sneered, "I am. But don't you know why I want to marry you, Sumu?" Sumu's face was pale under the street lamp. After a while, she whispered, "Sorry, it's too late." He said coldly, and then turned around and walked upstairs. "Come and open the door. I want to see Cymbidium Chinense." Sumu bit her lip and went upstairs. He stepped aside to let her open the door. The light was dim, and she couldn't see his face clearly. Suddenly, Yi Xianan reached out and clasped her shoulder, pressing her against a nearby wall. With a thoughtful look in his eyes, he said, "Your eyes are very red. Did you cry? Did you cry for Shen Wenxuan?" "No." Sumu denied it quickly. She didn't want to talk nonsense with him. She took the key and opened the door. When the door was opened, he grabbed her hand. It was a little indecent when he pulled her. And all this was seen by Cymbidium Chinense. The little person wore a white bathrobe and looked here eagerly. He remembered that his mother went downstairs to throw the garbage. Why did his father come here? Yi Xianan quickly let go of Sumu and walked over to carry Yi Sun. "You're still awake?" Cymbidium Chinense whispered, "Can't." Yi Xiangnan smiled. "Can't you tell me a story?" Cymbidium Chinense didn't feel that he was that close to him, but he was a child after all. He thought of the warmth before and was a little fascinated and hesitated. Yi Xiangnan carried him to the small bedroom. The bed that Cymbidium Chinense slept on was only 2 meters. Although it was simple, the whole room was very clean and tidy. Even the quilt and pillows smelled like the sun. It was so puffy that it made people feel very comfortable. One big and one small lay down, and they had already occupied the bed. Cymbidium Chinense was stuffed under the quilt, and only his little head came out. He was resisting and yearning at the same time. It was so difficult for him. Yi Xiang was lying on the south side, holding the little fellow in her arms and telling him a story in a low voice. After telling the story about Snow White, when it came to Cinderella, the little Cymbidium Chinense finally couldn't help saying, "Dad, I'm not a little girl." Chapter 49-34. Yi Xiangnan lay on his side, hugging the little fellow and telling a story in a low voice. After telling Snow White, when it came to Cinderella, the little Cymbidium Chinense finally couldn't help but say, "Dad, I'm not a little girl." Yi Xiangnan lowered his head. "What story do you want to hear?" "SpongeBob SquarePants, can Dad?" Cymbidium Chinense's little face was full of expectation. Yi Xiangnan looked at his son and coughed. "Of course." He took out his phone, Baidu, looked at it for a while, and then began to tell the story to Cymbidium Chinense. Cymbidium Chinense probably liked it very much and felt very satisfied, so he fell asleep after a while. Yi Xiangnan silently looked at his little face. After a while, he raised his head slightly and saw Su Mu at the door. "Asleep," Yi Xianan said in a low voice. It was probably because he hadn't been with Cymbidium Chinense for a long time, so his heart was still a little soft. Sumu nodded, "Thank you." Then he didn't move away, probably waiting for the guest to be sent off. Yi Xiangnan didn't think about it. "Is there an extra quilt?" Sumu was stunned for a moment. Yi Xiangnan frowned. "Or do you want me to sleep in your room and share a bed with you?" Sumu turned her head and left. After a while, She brought a quilt and put it in his hand. Yi Xiangnan got up. I'll take a shower first. Su Mu stood there straight, and after a long time, she repeated his words. Take a shower? Don't you want to sleep? Yi Xiangnan had already walked in front of her, his body against her, and he lowered his head and whispered, Don't you take a shower before going to bed? Su Mu was blocked by him. After a long time, she said in a low voice, Okay, but there are no pajamas for you here. Yi Xiangnan looked at her and didn't say anything. He went straight into the bathroom. The bathroom was very small, extremely small. In his eyes, it was only the size of a palm. When he opened the bathroom door, he saw Su Mu at the door. As he dried his hair with a towel, his eyes fell on her face. Su Mu turned her face away. His face was a little hot. Yi Xiangnan threw the towel on her head and snorted. It's not like I haven't seen it before. You don't need to make such a fuss. Su Mu pulled off the towel and glared at him. Yi Xiangnan smiled and went to the window in the living room with a pack of cigarettes and a lighter in his hands. He opened the window and stood there, smoking 2 cigarettes in silence. Su Mu couldn't help but say, Yi Xiangnan, don't smoke here. He turned his head. The window is open. Su Mu bit her lower lip. There will be a smell. As she said that, she coughed softly. Yi Xiangnan looked at her silently. In the end, he didn't say anything and put out the cigarette. Sleep. He glanced at her and suddenly said, Su Mu, your temper is really bad and stubborn. She didn't answer. She just watched him walk into the bedroom of Cymbidium Chinense. Yi Xiangnan turned his head at the door and sneered. Are you afraid that I won't sleep here and that I'll squeeze with you? No, Su Mu said quietly. I'm just afraid that Mr. Yi will be wronged. This form of address really distanced their relationship a lot. There was a sense of alienation, and it was deliberately to avoid arousing suspicion. Yi Xiangnan looked at her. There is no one else here. You don't have to do this. Su Mu didn't say anything. For her, he was just a stranger. Yi Xiangnan didn't close the door. He directly laid down beside Cymbidium Chinense. The bed was really small. It was difficult to turn over. Su Mu thought for a while and whispered, Or, you'd better go back. You may not be used to living here. Yi Xiangnan lay down and glanced at her. You don't have to go to work tomorrow. Don't you need to get up early? I work in the afternoon. She whispered. Yi Xiangnan said lightly, Then I'll send Cymbidium Chinense to school tomorrow morning. By the way, you'll have noodles for breakfast. Mushroom chicken noodles are ready. It was delicious last time. Su Mu glanced at him. You stay here just for a bowl of noodles. She had an urge to immediately cook a bowl of noodles for him to eat so he could scram, but her rationality told her that it would be dangerous to do so. Yi Xiangnan chuckled. To accompany my son, as he said, he turned sideways and kissed little Cymbidium Chinense gently. With his appearance at this time, and in such a simple place, he was like an ordinary father. Su Mu looked at him quietly with a very faint smile on her face. She didn't know how gentle her expression was, but Yi Xiangnan caught it when he raised his eyes. He stared at her for a while. Su Mu probably noticed it. She restrained her expression and stepped back a little. Probably because of him, she didn't take a bath until very late. She was very tired after a day and had all kinds of things to do. Su Mu slept very deeply, but she woke up again in the middle of the night. It was raining outside, and the rain hit the window, adding a touch of deep meaning to the autumn. Su Mu opened her eyes for a while and felt a trace of coldness. She got up and remembered that a small window in the living room wasn't closed. It was opened when Yi Xiangnan smoked. It wasn't cold usually, but now that it was raining, there was a trace of coldness. Su Mu walked out and closed the window. After closing it, she felt a little warmer in the house. She didn't guard against it and even forgot that there was a man in the house. Finally, when she turned around, she found Yi Xiangnan standing behind her. She was stunned for a long time before she said, Why are you? Yi Xiangnan chuckled. Come to close the window. She replied, and want to go back to the bedroom. He caught her hand. His hand was very warm, while hers was a little cold. She fell beside him and smelled the faint smell of tobacco on his body. Her heart was a little flustered, especially in the middle of the night, a man and a woman alone, especially when they were so close. Yi Xiangnan said in a low voice, Because you have Shun Wen Xuan in your heart. You don't want to get married and are willing to give up everything. No. She struggled against his hand and wanted to break free, but he didn't let go. She couldn't do anything. No, then why? He said coldly. Everything was fine before he appeared. You even moved to my place. Sumu opened her eyes slightly. It's obviously Lin Lu, okay? Yi Xiangnan, you are too good at inverting right and wrong. He took a step forward, and she took a step back. There was defensiveness in his eyes. She didn't know what he wanted to do. He looked especially dangerous. But she was wrong again. He didn't want to do anything. He just walked forward and said in a low voice, Lin Lu is over. If you mind, we won't have any personal contact in the future. But he couldn't guarantee that there wouldn't be anyone else. This was what Su Mu felt was especially bad about him. She gritted her teeth. I don't mind. Really? You don't mind? He whispered in her ear, Tell me, aren't you tempted at all at my place? It was probably a man's desire to win. He didn't believe that she wasn't tempted at all, even if it was his appearance or his wealth. Chapter 49:35. Sumu opened her eyes wide and stared at him. Yi Xiangnan's voice became deeper and deeper, just like the night. It was still raining outside the window, and the raindrops hit the window glass, which was particularly clear at this moment. The moment Sumu opened her mouth, she realized that her voice was a little soft. No, she bit her lip. Never. Yi Xiaonan's side profile brushed past her ear. In just a few seconds, Sumu felt that her back was covered in cold sweat. That feeling was really not good. Yi Xiaonan's eyes locked onto her. After staring at her for a long time, she suddenly laughed. You have quite a backbone. But Miss Su, backbone can't be eaten. You understand it best right now, don't you? He said word by word. So what if you and Shun Wen Xuan like each other? You can't be together, can you? With that, he walked past her. At that moment, Su Mu was expressionless, but she seemed to be crying in her heart. Yi Xiangnan was right. She stood there without moving. It was not until the rain outside the window became faster that she returned to her bedroom. Because she slept late, Su Mu inevitably slept late in the morning. When she opened her eyes, it was already 7 o'clock. When she got up, the house was quiet. But when she poked her head out, she saw an adult and a child sitting in the living room. It seemed that they were waiting for breakfast. Su Mu grabbed her hair. Why didn't you wake me up? Yi Xiangnan glanced at her. You slept quite well. If you didn't wake up, I was going to send Cymbidium Chinense to school myself. Su Mu immediately went to the bathroom to brush her teeth and wash her face. Then, she changed her clothes. She quietly prepared 2 bowls of noodles and brought them to the dining table. Yi Xiangnan sniffed it. It was that smell. It was very fragrant. As he ate quietly, he suddenly looked up and asked, Have you ever eaten noodles for Shun Wen Xuan? Cymbidium Chinense betrayed Su Mu in a childish voice. Uncle Shun has eaten it once. Su Mu glanced at him. Cymbidium Chinense didn't dare to make a sound. He lowered his head and ate his noodles in silence. Yi Xiangnan's face darkened. He put down the chopsticks in his hand after eating half of the noodles. Su Mu was also quite speechless. If you don't want to eat, clean up. Yi Xiangnan lit a cigarette and walked outside. Come down when you're done. I'll wait in the car. Su Mu didn't say anything. Cymbidium Chinense said, Daddy, I will definitely eat quickly. After all, he was still a child and longed for fatherly love. Yi Xiangnan turned around and smiled, but he didn't look at Su Mu. Su Mu sat down and watched Cymbidium Chinense eat his noodles. Cymbidium Chinense raised his eyes after a while and looked at his mother. He asked softly, Mummy, will you marry Daddy again? Su Mu shook her head. No. But Cymbidium Chinense might have to go live with Grandpa and Grandma. They can take better care of you. As she said that, her voice was a little choked up and she felt a little reluctant. Her fingers brushed his hair gently, feeling that she had let down her son. However, this choice was painful for Su Mu. She knew that it would be even more unfair to Cymbidium Chinense if she didn't do it. After she said that, the little person froze for a moment and looked at her with a pitiful look. Cymbidium Chinense, don't you like Grandma very much? Su Mu asked softly. Mummy can visit you anytime, too. Cymbidium Chinense was silent for a long while before he asked her softly, "Mummy, will you have other children and not want Cymbidium Chinense anymore?" "No." Sumu hugged him and pressed her cheek against his. "How could I?" she said softly. Chapter 49:36. Memorize Cymbidium Chinense, stopped talking, and stayed in her arms obediently. "Go get your school bag. We're going to school." Sumu's voice was a little hoarse. "I'll clean up for you tonight, and then we'll go to Grandma's place, okay?" Cymbidium Chinense stared at her, its face a little tense. Sumu knew that he was a little conflicted and insecure, so she coaxed him again. "If Grandma asks Mommy to stay there for one night, then Mommy will stay with Cymbidium Chinense for one night. On Saturdays and Sundays, Mommy will bring Cymbidium Chinense home when I'm free, okay? Mommy will work hard to change to a bigger house. One day, when Mommy is strong enough to protect Cymbidium Chinense, we'll live together forever, okay?" The Cymbidium Chinense let out an "oh" and hung its head, but it still felt a little dejected. Sumu ruffled his hair again and smiled warmly. Cymbidium Chinense put his hand on his shoulder and went to his room to get his school bag. He carried it on his back and said, "Mom, I'm done." Sumu adjusted his posture and squatted down. "Little man, why are you so listless? This won't do." Cymbidium Chinense looked at her with an indescribable expression, but it was more of helplessness. Sumu smiled and didn't say anything. She patted his shoulder and said, "All right, you can go now." Cymbidium Chinense nodded and obediently went downstairs with her. When they got out of the car, Yi Xiangnan was already leaning against the car and smoking about 2 cigarettes. When he saw them coming, he raised his hand to look at his watch, but did not say anything. He opened the car door and let Cymbidium Chinense sit in the back. When Sumu was about to go up, he stopped and raised his eyebrows. "Sit next to me. I have something to say to you. Let's talk as we walk." As he spoke, he opened the door of the front passenger seat with a domineering aura. Sumu glanced at him and said nothing. She got into the car. Yi Xiangnan closed the car door, walked to the other side, opened the door, and quickly started the car. It was getting late. The car was moving a little fast, but it didn't stop him from talking to her. He seemed to have thought it through. "This daycare will last until the end of this semester. I'll find a private school for him." Sumu tilted her head and said, "This nursery is pretty good. Cymbidium Chinense is also very used to it." Cymbidium Chinense was at the back, wanted to say something, but hesitating. Yi Xiangnan said coldly, "Really? That's good. Do you really think it's good?" "Sumu, Cymbidium Chinense surname is Yi. You know that the children of the Yi family go to an elite school and receive the best education. They even have bodyguards when they go in and out. But he's living with me now. I have the right to make decisions for him. I don't want him to become like you." Although it was difficult, Sumu still said it. Yi Xiangnan's face turned a little ugly. After a moment of silence, he said, "You can't imagine how complicated our circle is. Anything can happen. My mom didn't mention it because it's not easy to talk about it. I still need to make arrangements for these things. Do you really think that Cymbidium Chinense surname is Yi and he can grow up by your side? Even if I get married in the future and have other children, do you really think that it has nothing to do with Cymbidium Chinense?" This was also the reason why he wanted to marry Sumu. He liked Cymbidium Chinense, and the elders in his family liked him too. If nothing went wrong, he would be the future heir. How could he marry someone else and have a son? It was unfair to Cymbidium Chinense. Besides, Yi Xiangnan didn't seem to have much desire to get married and have children. There was a ready-made child here. Why should he do something unnecessary? Chapter 49:37. Yi Xiangnan didn't say anything else. He was just informing Sumu about these things. If he really interfered, Sumu wouldn't be able to stop him. Besides, Cymbidium Chinense would spend most of his time in the Yi family. It wouldn't be appropriate for him to go to an ordinary school. He stopped talking and focused on driving. In less than 10 minutes, they arrived at Cymbidium Chinense school. Sumu got out of the car and walked to the door with Cymbidium Chinense. She reached out and touched his little head. "You have to listen to the teacher, okay?" Cymbidium chinense nodded obediently. Goodbye, Mom. As she said that, she turned her head and looked in Yi Xiangnan's direction. Yi Xiangnan also looked at his son and waved at him. Cymbidium chinense's little face suddenly turned a little red. Then he jumped into the school. This was the first time that his parents sent him to school together. Later on, Cymbidium chinense always remembered it. For many years, Sumu stood up and looked at her son for a long time. Then, she returned to the car. Yi Xiangnan tilted his head. Shall I send you to the mall? Sumu nodded. Today was her last day at work. When Yuan would arrange for her classes and some work later on, Yi Xiangnan drove quietly. Then, he couldn't help but take out a cigarette, light it, and open the window. Sumu looked at him and was a little speechless. She really felt that he had all the 5 poisons and 1 poison. What a waste of a good-looking face. Yi Xiangnan looked at her and snorted. I really don't know how you survived until now with such a bad temper. You must be very unpopular at home, right? After saying that, Sumu's voice was a little stiff. It's none of your business. Yi Xiangnan smiled. He knew that he had touched her bottom line. However, her current situation was more or less related to him. If it hadn't been for Cymbidium chinense that night, maybe she would be fine now and married to Shen Wenxuan. He felt a little uncomfortable at the thought of that possibility. Actually, he didn't like her either. From top to bottom, from inside to outside, there was nothing that he liked. Yi Xiangnan flicked the cigarette and closed the door. It's none of my business. But, Sumu, you'd better not do anything out of line. You are Cymbidium chinense's mother. I don't want him to be criticized in the future. Sumu was a little angry. She said in a cold voice, Yi Xiangnan, don't go too far. Are you the one who doesn't know how to behave? Are you the one who has a messy private life? Who is the one who has an affair with Shen Wenxuan? He asked a little aggressively. Sumu blurted out, I've never had one. After saying that, she felt a little regretful. The atmosphere in the narrow car was subtle. Sumu didn't say anything again. Yi Xiangnan didn't say anything either. After a long time, she said bitterly, Actually, we don't have to interact with each other. Mr. Yi, you are such a good person. You should be happy. It's you who wants to be happy. He said in a strange tone, It's my mistake to take over Cymbidium chinense. I let Miss Su have more time to make friends with the opposite sex. Sumu couldn't bear it anymore. Yi Xiangnan, don't go too far. Am I going too far? He snorted. Or did I say what's on your mind? Boring. Sumu turned her head and ignored him. Yi Xiangnan didn't pay attention to her either. He felt that he was in a difficult situation. The car drove for a long time and arrived at her workplace. When Sumu opened the door and was about to get off, Yi Xiangnan suddenly said, Qini Huan got married today. I have a right to be happy long ago. Chapter 49:38. When Sumu opened the car door and was about to get out, Yi Xiangnan suddenly said, Qini Huan is getting married today. I have the right to be happy for a long time. She and Shen Wenxuan had only been together for a few years, but the girl that he had loved for almost 20 years had long stopped loving him. He had waited for so many years for her to regret, but he had not expected that Sumu and his son would come. It seemed that he was the one who had a change of heart first. Sumu had already stepped out of the car, but she retracted her foot at this moment. She turned her head and looked at Yi Xiangnan quietly, saying softly, But you shouldn't drag me down with you. She had given birth to a child for him, and she was not liked by her parents. However, Sumu still had love in her heart, and she still had expectations for marriage. Even if it wasn't Shen Wenxuan, she felt that she would meet someone suitable one day. If it wasn't him, she would make do. It was good to be alone. There was no need for her to fill in Yi Xiangnan's life. He was rich, but at the same time, he had a lot of shortcomings. Not being respected was what Sumu couldn't stand. Yi Xiangnan frowned and suddenly laughed. He looked her up and down, and then said, You seem to think that if I let you go, you will find happiness. You are so confident. He paused for a moment, as if he had just remembered something. I almost forgot about Shen Wenxuan. He has been waiting for you. Did you guys agree to get married when you become successful together? Sumu didn't say anything. Yi Xiangnan's face completely darkened. knowing that he had guessed right. He snorted coldly. You better not have such thoughts. A marriage without blessings will not be happy. Think about his family. How can they be happy? Besides, she gave birth to Cymbidium chinense. She would never be able to tear off the label of having an affair with the Yi family in this life. In a family like the Shun family, there weren't many steel buggies, but they shook them very loudly. They were especially concerned about their reputation. Sumu probably hadn't seen that kind of character yet. Shen Wenyuan's embarrassment was just the beginning. Moreover, Sumu and Shun Wenshuan hadn't done anything yet. If they were really determined to be together, the Shun family would also be determined to break them up. Yi Xiangnan was very clear about this. He had seen this kind of thing too many times. After he finished speaking, Su Mu's reply was a light snort, and she was too lazy to bother with him. Yi Xiangnan glanced at her and didn't say anything else. He closed the car door and drove away. Su Mu stood there for a while before going to the counter she was at. Along the way, countless eyes stared at her, making Su Mu a little uncomfortable. When she arrived at her own counter, she was still the same as before. She tidied up the goods, moved things up and down, just like before. The manager came over and touched her shoulder. I heard that you just came here in a luxury car, and someone recognized that it was Mr. Ye's car. Come on, tell me if you have made up with Mr. Yi. When will the wedding be held? Don't forget to invite me. Let me see what the upper class is like. Sumu shook her head. No, I'm not going to marry him. I just want to send my child to school together. Send your child to school together? The manager's expression was a little thought-provoking. So you spent last night together? I didn't expect that you acted so fast. No, he slept with Cymbidium chinense. Sumu said softly, I'm not going to marry into the Yi family. Not now and not in the future. Chapter 49-39. The manager was stunned and asked, Then why did you quit? Sumu thought for a moment and said, I want to go back to school. Cymbidium chinense. They're helping to take care of it. I've thought about it, and I want to continue studying. The manager nodded understandingly. That's true. It's good to study more. You're still young and smart. It's a waste to stay here forever. You have to seize the opportunity. Don't be so stupid, okay? Sumu smiled. Thank you, Sister Chun. The manager was a nice person and smiled again. When you earn money in the future, come and take care of our business. I'll give you a discount. Sumu agreed, and the two of them worked together. Actually, Sumu quite liked her work here. It was busy and fulfilling, and the manager treated her well. She was a little reluctant to leave. She also knew that others were talking about her behind her back, talking about her relationship with the Yi family. She didn't explain. She didn't need to explain anything to others. She was responsible for her own life. If others couldn't bear it for her, she didn't need to explain it to others. Just like that, in the afternoon, she received a call from a nursery at around 1 o'clock. The voice on the other side was rather anxious. Is it the mother of Cymbidium chinense? I'm a teacher at Cymbidium chinense. Cymbidium chinense just had a conflict with a child and broke his head. Hurry up and come and deal with it. The teacher's voice was a little low. The child's mother isn't easy to deal with. So, just lower your attitude later and make it a small matter. If this matter is exposed, it won't be good for our nursery. Sumu felt that her attitude was ambiguous, but she was very worried about Cymbidium chinense. So, she didn't care and asked for leave. She also felt bad. After all, this was her last day of work, and something like that had happened. The manager was very reasonable and pushed her. Hurry up and go. Don't let the child wait too long. He must be very scared now. Sumu immediately went over. He didn't even change out of his uniform. Usually, he couldn't bear to take a taxi, but this time he directly flagged down a taxi to go to the nursery. 20 minutes later, the car arrived at the nursery. A young female teacher was already waiting for Sumu. When she saw Sumu get out of the car, she said, It's like this, Cymbidium chinense mother. The other party's child is called Wu Xiaolei. He's quite good with the Cymbidium chinense, but for some reason, the Cymbidium chinense suddenly got into a fight with him today. By the time we got there, the other party's child's head was injured. His mother is difficult to deal with, so Sumu looked at the young teacher and asked softly, "Is Cymbidium chinense all right?" The teacher was stunned for a moment before saying, "Cymbidium chinense is fine. It's just that she's in a bad mood." Kids are always like that after a fight. Sumu's steps were a little hurried. Then how did they start fighting? The female teacher's expression was a little thought-provoking as she looked straight at Sumu. Sumu made eye contact with her and had probably guessed it as well. She felt a pain in her heart, not for herself, but for the Cymbidium chinense. Because of that, the Cymbidium chinense was often bullied in the nursery. In fact, the Cymbidium chinense had told her once, but she didn't take it to heart. Instead, she comforted the Cymbidium chinense and asked him to endure it. She had always thought that she could take care of the Cymbidium chinense well, but that might not be the case. Sumu suddenly stopped in her tracks. She took out her phone and dialed a number with slightly trembling fingers. It was Yi Xiangnan's phone. On the other side, Yi Xiangnan was in a meeting. Suddenly, the phone on the table rang. Chapter 4940. Memorize on the other side. Yi Xiangnan was in a meeting. Suddenly, the phone on the table rang. He frowned and looked down. It was a call from Sumu. Just as he was stunned for a moment, the secretary beside him reminded him of a question that had just been asked by a senior executive. Yi Xiangnan raised his hand and said, "Vice President Li, you continue to preside over the meeting. I'll take a call and may go out for a while." Answer a phone call? They want Vice President Li to preside over it? Why couldn't anyone understand what was going on? But their CEO, Yi, had already walked out. In the corridor, he asked Sumu what's the matter. "It's Cymbidium chinense. It broke a classmate's head a little at school." Sumu's voice was a little hoarse. Yi Xiangnan immediately asked, "What about Cymbidium chinense? Is he all right?" "I haven't seen him yet. Their teacher said he's fine." Sumu's voice trembled slightly. Yi Xiangnan quickly made a decision. "You go take a look at the Cymbidium chinense first. I'll be right there." Pausing for a moment, he continued, "I'll handle this personally. Don't get into a conflict." As he spoke, he hung up the phone, brought a secretary with him, and drove the car himself. On the other hand, Sumu followed the female teacher to the nursery's infirmary. The child's parents were already there. The jewelry she was wearing made the simple and clean space look shabby, not to mention Sumu's work clothes. The principal of the nursery came in person and kept comforting the rich lady. "I'm really sorry. It was just a quarrel between the children. The children have already reconciled. Do you think we can forget about this matter? We can just ask the parents of the Cymbidium chinense to pay for the medical expenses and apologize. The two children still have to get along in the future, right?" When Sumu came in, the director nodded politely, but he was obviously not as warm as he was to a rich lady. Sumu could understand this. After all, she had already experienced the fickleness of human nature over the years. Family members were already like that, let alone outsiders. She quietly apologized to the slightly plump woman and said that she would pay for the medical expenses herself. The director also said that it would be settled peacefully. That woman squinted at Sumu and looked her up and down with her shrewd eyes. Then, she snorted disdainfully, "You're quite humble. Maybe people at your level are all like this, Mother Yi. You pretend to be pitiful, but do evil things behind your back. There are too many people like you." "One is another," Sumu said coldly. "What kind of person I am, it's not up to others to make irresponsible remarks." That woman laughed a little exaggeratedly and said to the director and the teacher of the Cymbidium chinense, "Look, she still has the cheek to refute. She got pregnant before marriage, and she doesn't have a husband." The Cymbidium chinense doesn't have a father. So what if my son said a few words of truth? Does that mean that her son can beat someone up? Let me tell you, if your child doesn't kneel down and apologize to my child, I won't let you off. I'll sue you and let everyone see what it means to be shameless. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The more the woman spoke, the more arrogant she became. The director and the teacher looked at each other. Actually, they knew that she was being unreasonable, but the other party was really rich and not someone to be trifled with. When they heard that her father-in-law was a certain something, it became even more difficult to deal with her. The director thought about it again and again. Teacher Wang, bring the Cymbidium Chinense over and apologize. Then, we'll forget about this matter. Chapter 49-41. Updates quickly. She then turned her head and looked at Sumu. Cymbidium Chinense mother, I see that you're not doing well financially. Let's discuss this. Cymbidium Chinense will apologize, and our nursery will pay for the medical fees. What do you think? She felt that Sumu should be more practical given his current situation. After all, the medical fees and the examination fees were more than 1,000. She was just a kid, so apologizing was like playing house. She would forget it in a few days. Sumu finally saw the true colors of this nursery. Before she could say anything, Ms. Wang had already brought Cymbidium Chinense over. Cymbidium Chinense was in a bad mood. He came over and threw himself into Sumu's arms, calling out softly for his mother and apologizing like a kitten. Sumu reached out and touched his little head. It's okay, Cymbidium Chinense. What happened? Cymbidium Chinense's little face was tense and embarrassed. There were even a lot of tears in his eyes. He bit his lips and said after a long time, he said that I don't have a father and that I'm a bastard. After saying that, he felt really embarrassed. Sumu's heart ached and she patted him. How can that be? Didn't Daddy send you to school this morning? Cymbidium Chinense has a father. The woman waited for a long time and couldn't help but snort lightly. Who are you trying to fool? How can he have a father? Everyone in class is saying that he's a bastard and no one has ever seen his father. The principal and Mr. Wang both looked at Sumu with contempt in their eyes. Sumu stood up straight and said to the woman, apologize. Also, I'll pay for your child's medical fees. If you want to sue me or do anything else, apologize to Cymbidium Chinense first. The woman seemed to be stabbed by something. She jumped up and her fat body trembled. She pointed at Sumu with a pair of chubby hands. There was a big gold bracelet and 3 large gemstone rings on her hands. Are you kidding me? Your son hit my son, and you want my son to apologize to your son? Is there anyone as shameless as you? I'm telling you, I'm going to kill you when I get back. I'm going to kill your son so that you won't be able to survive and be city. There won't be a place for your son to study, and no school will dare to accept him. I'm telling you, I'm just that unreasonable. The woman was so angry that her face was distorted. The fat on her face trembled. She couldn't bear to look at her. The principal and Mr. Wang wanted Sumu to compromise. They didn't want to be implicated. Cymbidium Chinense, on the other hand, buried its face in its mother's arms. It was still a little scared, but at this moment, a shadow at the door blocked the light. Then a voice rang out. Who do you want to kill? Who do you want to kill in B City? I've never known anyone in B City who can kill someone from the Yi family. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xiangnan walked in. He had a meeting today. He was dressed in a formal suit. His shirt was as white as snow, and his suit was even more well-ironed. The cufflinks were probably made of diamonds. They sparkled and looked especially nice. The principal was stunned. Mr. Wang was stunned. The bejeweled woman was also stunned. He was too good-looking. Was he a real person? He looked like a statue. He was tall, handsome, and noble. He was even better looking than a male celebrity, and he had a noble temperament. As for what he said, everyone had forgotten. Just when everyone was stunned, Cymbidium Chinense cried and threw itself into his arms, calling him Daddy. Daddy, everyone was dumbfounded again. He was Cymbidium Chinense's father? And he just said something about the Yi family. Cymbidium Chinense also had the surname Yi? This man looked so familiar. Think again. Chapter 49-42. Teacher Wang suddenly realized that this was the CEO of Starlight. This background wasn't the most impressive. Did you know Yi Mulin? He had just retired. Who did he give all his connections to? The new CEO of the Wen family. Who was that? He was Yi Xiangnan's youngest uncle. He loved Yi Xiangnan the most, and was also Wen Yuan's younger brother. Teacher Wang's face turned pale. She immediately whispered a few words to the principal. The principal didn't expect that there would be a star of South Africa in a public nursery like theirs. Didn't they say that children from rich families would study in private schools? How did they end up here? Sigh. She was really in trouble. The director wanted to smooth things over, but there was no place for her to speak at this time. Yi Xianan's secretary was extremely powerful. As soon as she saw the commotion, she smiled and said a few words. With just a few words, she controlled the situation. The director was in a very passive position and had no right to speak at all. Yi Xiangnan patted his son in his arms and comforted him in a low voice. "Little boy, how can you cry so easily? What did they say about you? That you don't have a father?" Cymbidium Chinense nodded with tears in his eyes. When he looked up, his little face was almost identical to Yi Xiangnan's. Teacher Wang hated herself for being blind. Why didn't she see it before? Yi Xiangnan sneered. "So you hit him?" Cymbidium Chinense nodded pitifully again. The rich woman seemed to have caught something on her and shouted, "Did you hear that? He was the one who hit my son first. He was the one who hit me first. Did your son fight back?" Yi Xiangnan interrupted her impatiently. The woman was stunned for a moment. She mumbled, "Anyway, my son was hurt." Yi Xiangnan sneered. "That's because he's useless. He's so weak when he's 50 kilograms tall. If I were his parent, I would be embarrassed to death." "Kneel? Who told you that the Yi family has to kneel to others? Do you want me to kneel for you?" The people in the garden trembled with fear as they listened. The woman was terrified, but thinking of her father-in-law's high position, she regained her courage in an instant. "Anyway, your child can forget about going to school here. I'll get the Cymbidium Chinense expelled. Of course we won't do it here, but before we leave, I want to see who will be fired first," Yi Xiangnan said coldly, then turned his head to look at the secretary and whispered a few words. In just a short while, even the head of the park was trembling in fear. That woman was also on the phone, crying her father-in-law, asking him to be killed. The principal was helpless. She kept saying nice things to Yi Xiangnan, but Yi Xiangnan ignored her. In the end, she could only beg Su Mu. Su Mu was not a soft-hearted person, so she did not say anything. 2 or 3 minutes later, Secretary Li hung up the phone and said to Yi Xiangnan, "There's a reply. The principal here has to be changed," and she smiled. It was a beautiful smile for a young girl, but there was a trace of cruelty in it. "I heard that the position of that person is not low, but he has been acting like a tyrant for a long time, so we need to check it out." Yi Xiangnan nodded and left with his son in his arms. After a few steps, he turned around and looked at Su Mu. "Why are you still here? Are you staying for dinner?" Su Mu was stunned. "You can leave now?" Secretary Li was smart. She immediately came forward and smiled. "It's all settled. It's just a fight between children." She said it so casually, but the head of the park was about to faint. Chapter 49-43. She said it so casually, but the head of the park was about to faint. Yes, it was a fight between children, but she lost her job. There was also a rich lady whose family was probably worse off than her. She would probably be investigated, and the jewelry in her hands would also be confiscated. She hated it so much. She couldn't be low-key, asking people to kneel down for no reason. It attracted the god of plague and caused her to die. The principal was in a daze, and Mr. Wang was not much better. Only the woman did not understand the situation and kept asking questions. The principal waved his hand and said, "The person you've offended isn't an ordinary person. Other than the one family, the Qin family is in the limelight in B City. This person is the most favored of the two families. He's the CEO of Stars Entertainment. It was really funny. You still want someone else's child to be your son? How shameless are you?" The director did not want to talk anymore. She had to pack up her things. The rich woman was stunned and did not come back to her senses for a long time. Just then, her son asked her, "Mom, isn't Cymbidium Chinense going to apologize to me?" The woman came back to her senses and gave him a big slap. "Apologize, apologize. You only know how to cause trouble. Now, if your grandfather's investigated, we will all have nothing to eat." The child thought in his heart, "Didn't you say that you want people to kneel down for you?" On the other side, Su Mu followed Yi Xiangnan to the car. To her surprise, Yi Xiangnan let her drive and got into the back seat. holding the cymbidium chinense in his hand. The secretary tactfully sat in the front passenger seat. The secretary was only 27 or 28 years old. To be able to get to this position, she was very shrewd and knew how to stand on the side. Today, she could see that CEO Yi might not particularly like Miss Su, but he was very protective. There was a kind of relationship where he could bully others and others could not. There was nothing to say about the son of cymbidium chinense. Wasn't Lin Lu sent abroad because of this son? She still did not give up and said that in fact, the situation was very stable now. Since ancient times, mothers have been respected because of their sons. As long as Su Mu did not make trouble, this Mrs. Yi was still very stable. Look at the appearance of cymbidium chinense. How successful it was. It was 100% inherited from CEO Yi. Chosen by God. Secretary Li whispered, CEO Yi, are we going back to the company now? Yi Xiangnan held his son and said directly, go to the hospital. Secretary Li said like a microphone, Miss Su, go to the hospital. Yi Sun spoke up like a kitten, Daddy, I'm fine. A fight and nothing's wrong? Yi Xianan snorted softly. Let's go take a look. At this time, Xingyuan Hospital had been the Tang family's business. Miss Su, Secretary Li said. Li said, Secretary Li, Shang Yuan had always been the property of the Tang clan, and it had a close relationship with the Qin clan. Sumu knew this. She paused and then remembered. In the evening, no? Mr. Yi, if you have something to do, I will take cymbidium chinense there. It's just a checkup. It won't take much time. After that, you can go with me. Yi Xiangnan played it down. It's just a meal. Don't have too much psychological burden. He was going to take cymbidium chinense there. In a formal occasion, he should let cymbidium chinense show his face. Otherwise, just like today, any cat or dog could bully his son. Sumu did not say anything, but it did not mean that she would go. The car drove to the hospital. Secretary Li helped to find a familiar doctor and disappeared automatically. There was no need for her to be in the middle of a family of 3. Chapter 49-44. Secretary Li was a very smart person. Her boss might be handsome, but he really wasn't her cup of tea. She would just do her job well, suck up to him, earn money, and enjoy her beauty. She wouldn't want to be a mistress or a mistress. What good would that Lin Lu do? She knew CEO Yi well. The relationship between his wife and his woman might be blurred, but with such a son, the woman outside would always be outside and would never be brought to the table. Secretary Li left. Sumu didn't notice it until later, but she didn't say anything. After checking cymbidium chinense, it was fortunate that there was nothing wrong with the little guy. When they went out, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a delicate time, a time for dinner. Sumu looked at the time and said softly, then I'll bring cymbidium chinense back first. Take the luggage down. She probably meant to let him take cymbidium chinense away. Little Yi Sun instantly became nervous. His little face tensed up, and he didn't say anything. This time, it was Yi Xiangnan who drove. He adjusted his sitting position, then looked at the rearview mirror and said calmly, let's go to the wedding banquet first. Sumu said without thinking, I won't go. It's just by the way, not on purpose. He was very calm, then turned his head and looked at Sumu. Sumu didn't say anything, but cymbidium chinense in her arms was still a little scared after what happened today. It pulled her clothes, obviously asking her to accompany him. Sumu didn't object anymore. Yi Xiangnan drove to a studio. The car stopped, and Sumu bit her lower lip. It doesn't have to be so grand. Yi Xiangnan glanced at her. Why? Do you want to wear work clothes? Sumu didn't say anything. Yi Xiangnan unfastened the seatbelt, got out of the car, and directly picked up Xiangnan, walking into the luxurious studio. Secretary Li had already made an appointment. As soon as they entered, the manager would receive them in person, and the studio was closed. Yi Xiangnan sat on the sofa, casually flipped through the magazine, and said, go buy a children's meal. The manager was stunned, then smiled and asked the shop assistant to buy it. Because of cymbidium chinense, Su Mu should be the rumored Cinderella, so she said with the most professional smile. Secretary Li said that Mrs. Yi will accompany Mr. Yi to attend a banquet, so we have a suggestion. Everything should be minimalist, so it won't steal the bride's limelight and look simple and elegant. What do you think, Mrs. Yi? Because of her family background, Su Mu couldn't deal with such a professional manager, and she wasn't. So her voice was a little low. I'm sorry, I'm not. Not what? Yi Xiangnan interrupted her. Su Mu's voice suddenly stopped. Although it was stopped, how could the manager not know what she wanted to say? She was really silly. Mr. Yi brought her here and asked her to attend a wedding banquet of the upper class. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. No, it was also obvious in others' eyes. She didn't mind for the time being. In any case, she had to serve this person well. Thus, she dressed him personally. As for little Yi Sun, it was easy. He was dressed in a commuter suit. This little fellow was especially handsome, and he should be the prettiest child here. And he was super noble. Chapter 49-45. As for Su Mu, the manager personally styled her. She made a simple black Chanel skirt with a small V-neck and a pair of high heels of the same color. As for jewelry, she only wore a pair of pearl pendants, which was also from Chanel. Her temperament suddenly became gentle. Yi Xiangnan gave her a handbag. The manager smiled. Mr. Yi really has a good taste. This is the new 19 from Chanel this year. Many stars are using it. It's especially suitable for Mrs. Yi. She also made a light makeup for Su Mu. After that, she pressed Su Mu's shoulder. Mrs. Ye's bone shape is quite good. She is relatively thin. It's better for her to follow the temperament style in the future. After that, she raised her eyes with a bit of flattery. What do you think, Mr. Yi? Yi Xiangnan was originally sitting on the sofa and waiting. Cymbidium Chinese was eating something beside him. Hearing the manager's words, he raised his eyes. Mom is so beautiful. Yi Xiangnan got up and walked over to have a look. He smiled slightly. I can still look at her. The manager was a bit weird. But thinking about it, Mr. Yi was born in an entertainment company. He had seen many beauties. Mrs. Ye's appearance was indeed ordinary, but the manager repeatedly emphasized, but Mrs. Ye's temperament is really good. It's very suitable for her. Yi Xiangnan smiled and didn't say anything else. Su Mu also didn't say anything. She was quite uncomfortable. She also knew that although this dress was not high-end, it was not cheap either. She was a little uneasy. Yi Xianin said calmly, "This one is pretty good." The manager was relieved and said very attentively, "Does Mr. Yi always pay by card or on credit?" Yi Xiangnan always needed a female companion on some occasions. They would all pay in Star's entertainment. But this time it was different, so the manager asked more. Yi Xiangnan took out his card and said calmly, "I'll pay." He swiped his card, and the total amount was only a little more than 100,000 yuan. Sometimes, he couldn't even buy a simple piece of jewelry in the circle of celebrities and upper-class ladies. But, as the manager said, Su Mu was very suitable for this kind of jewelry. She really looked very fresh and elegant. Cymbidium Chinese had also changed his clothes. It was probably because of his bloodline. He looked like a noble little prince. After getting into the car, Yi Xiangnan's voice was quite calm. "Sit with me later. Don't answer the questions you don't want to answer. No one could do anything to you." These words were equivalent to saying that he could afford to offend anyone he wanted to. It was quite frivolous, but it was natural for Yi Xiangnan to say it. He was the one who asked Su Mu to sit beside him. After a while, she suddenly asked, "Actually, you can bring Secretary Li with you." Yi Xiangnan was driving when he turned his head and frowned. "It's a private occasion. You want me to bring my secretary? I'm even more unsuitable," she argued in a low voice. Yi Xiangnan chuckled. "Cymbidium Chinese has to go. If I bring someone else, people will think that I'm looking for a stepmother for Cymbidium Chinese." Su Mu was speechless. After a long time, she looked out the car window. She didn't want to go to such an occasion. Because it was after work and it was the weekend, the traffic was quite bad. It was almost 8 o'clock when they arrived at the hotel. It was a GM hotel, the largest and most luxurious hotel in City B. Moreover, it was a Chinese banquet. Shinting and Qin Yihuan got married so soon because they heard that Qin Yihuan was pregnant. Qin Mo and Yihuan were quite helpless. They discussed for a while and decided to get married. As for the plan to go to Italy, they didn't put on hold. After all, Shunting needed to go abroad for his future work. Chapter 49-46. When they arrived at the hotel, they met the newlyweds. Yi Xiangnan, Qin Huan, and Shen Ting were in the same frame, which naturally attracted a lot of attention. After all, this triangle relationship had been maintained for many years. Now that the female lead was married to her childhood sweetheart, CEO Yi was not left behind. He had brought his wife and son. Mrs. Yi looked quite ordinary. Her appearance was not particularly outstanding, but her temperament was very good. She looked a little like a famous model, cold and very thin. Yi Xiangnan handed over a gift. It was a set of jewelry. Looking at the box, one could tell that it was very expensive. Shen Ting accepted it on his behalf. Both of them simply said a few words, and it was quite amiable. After all, it was a public occasion, and all the big shots cared about their reputation. Su Mu was a little surprised. In her impression, Yi Xiangnan had a very bad temper. However, on such an occasion, he was elegant and did not even have a trace of restraint. As she was thinking about it, Qin Huan looked at her, and Su Mu gave her a smile. She did not deliberately manage anything. Anyway, after tonight, they would not meet again. She did not need to apologize or please Yi Xiangnan. She only needed to deal with the situation tonight. Later, Yi Xiangnan brought her and Cymbidium Chinense to a table. Wen Yuan and Yi Mubai were there. Even the elders of the Yi family were there. Other than Yi Mulin and Bai Shuali, Yi Zhenggang, Su Fu, and Su Fu's husband were actually in the same frame. It was quite mysterious. Su Mu's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, she had a feeling that she was meeting the head of the family. She sat down uncomfortably. As soon as she sat down, Yi Zhenggang snorted. I heard that he has a bad temper. Su Mu's eyelids twitched. Wen Yuan immediately tried to smooth things over. He said with a smile, Yi Xiangnan, I'm talking about you. Yi Xiangnan glanced at Su Mu with a faint smile. Su Mu felt even more uncomfortable, especially now that she was sitting next to him. The table was filled with people from the Yi family, young and old, looking at her with a special kind of love in their eyes. There were also people at other tables who were secretly peeking over. She was a little speechless. She wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run. She was being roasted here, and the banquet hadn't started yet. Everyone at the table was staring at her. Yi Xiangnan smiled. Why are you all looking at Su Mu? At this moment, Su Fu handed over a box and said gently, I heard that you were coming, so I prepared a small gift for you. Consider it a greeting gift. Su Mu felt that it was inappropriate, but in such an occasion, she really didn't know whether to accept it or not. She felt that it was difficult to back down. Yi Xiangnan accepted it on her behalf. Hurry up and thank Grandma. Su Mu couldn't be rude, so she added a word. Thank you, Grandma Su. Su Fu smiled and didn't make things difficult for her. She quite liked Su Mu. She admired her because she didn't want to get married. She knew a little about Yi Xiangnan's temper. He was probably too arrogant since he was young. He was actually a good kid, but he was also a guy who looked at appearances. Su Mu would definitely be at a disadvantage. Although they weren't getting married now, she still prepared gift. As for Cymbidium Chinense, there would be plenty of opportunities to dote on him in the future. Su Fu was already very old, and he had a head of silver hair. But even though he was old, he still had a very special temperament, and he was very loving with his husband. This made Yi Zhenggang very uncomfortable, and very jealous. He had waited for many years for his old subordinate to pass away early. He still had the chance to grow old with Su Fu, but that old man never died. He had no choice. Chapter 49-47. Now, seeing that Su Fu was so gentle and polite, he felt upset. Yi Zhenggang was the most bad-tempered person. At this time, he felt uncomfortable. He couldn't do anything to his peers, so he vented his anger on the younger generation. He said in a bad tone, Their children are already married. Why haven't your children got married yet? How could Yi Xiangnan not know what Yi Zhenggang was thinking? He spread the napkin and replied lazily, "Because the children are grown up, so I'm not so anxious." Yi Zhenggang glared at Su Mu and said, "What about you? You're a girl. Aren't you anxious?" To be honest, the old man didn't think highly of Su Mu. Even today, he could barely see Su Mu. How could Su Mu be worthy of his precious grandson? Su Mu was so smart and handsome. Which girl in the upper class didn't want to marry him? If it weren't for the little cutie, Cymbidium chinense, he wouldn't admit that such a mediocre woman was his granddaughter-in-law. After Yi Zhenggang finished, Su Mu smiled politely. "Mr. Yi and I don't plan to get married." "Mr. Yi? No plan?" Yi Zhenggang glared at her again. But he couldn't help it. Su Mu didn't buy it. In fact, he was anxious. Who didn't know the relationship between Su Mu and Yi Xiangnan? None of them were in a hurry, but he was. Besides, since Xiangnan brought Su Mu here, his attitude was clear. He still had the same intention. As expected, Yi Xiangnan said lightly, "Grandpa, let's talk about it later." Su Mu looked at him and didn't understand what he meant. Yi Xiangnan smiled. In fact, it was what she thought, but he didn't show it. Because the Yi family sat together and focused on Su Mu and Cymbidium chinense, the progress of the wedding was not very important. However, Yi Xiangnan drank a little. He was not drunk, but people close to him could see that he was not in a good mood. Wen Yuanming secretly reminded him, feeling a little helpless. Su Mu was still here. At least, he had to save her some face. He didn't want her to think that he still had Yi Huan in his heart. Especially, they didn't have any emotional foundation. Not only his son, but also Su Mu didn't care about him. Wen Yuan was also convinced that he could cultivate affection like this. All the people present were also smart. They could see that this couple, who seemed to be getting married, actually didn't like each other. Xiangnan didn't have that intention, and Su Mu wasn't moved either. Especially when they heard that Su Mu had a relationship with a young talent in the legal team of Starlight. This matter was quite a blow to the proud CEO Yi. He was inferior to his subordinate. But love was like this. It didn't care about who came first or who served first. Besides, he didn't like her. Why should she like him? Yi Xiangnan drank too much, so he naturally couldn't drive. Cymbidium chinense and Su Mu were both there. The rest of the Yi family pretended that they didn't see it and let him fend for himself. In fact, they were throwing him to Su Mu in disguise. Tomorrow, wasn't it Saturday? It was still early. Wen Yuan took Cymbidium chinense away and sincerely asked Su Mu to send Yi Xiangnan back. Su Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry because Yi Sun's things were still with her. But it was really late, and she couldn't disturb Wen Yuan and the others. Yi Hui winked at her. "My brother is in your hands." Chapter 49-48. 1 second to remember. At the entrance of the hotel, it was a little cold at night. Su Mu watched as the Yi family took the Cymbidium chinense away. It was obvious that they wanted to make peace with the Yi family. However, there was one person who wasn't very happy, and that was Yi Zhenggang. Yi Zhenggang was old, but the older he got, the weirder he became. It was probably because of Annie Wang's matter that he disliked Su Mu. He felt that his family's good cabbage had been taken away by this pig, Su Mu. Yi Zhenggang snorted and glared at Su Mu. Seize the opportunity. It's not every day. Su Mu was a little speechless, but she couldn't do anything to him. Yi Xiangnan chuckled and didn't mind. He said a few words to Yi Zhenggang and got into the car. Su Mu really didn't know what he meant, but she didn't want to ask. She closed the car door and nodded at Yi Zhenggang. Yi Zhenggang's expression was very subtle. Su Mu felt a sense of shame in her heart. She followed him into the car and fastened her seatbelt. Yi Xiangnan seemed to have really drunk a lot. Once he got into the car, he closed his eyes and leaned his head against the back of the seat. When Su Mu got in, he just tilted his head and knocked in front of him. "Send me back to the villa." He was quite impolite. He either treated her as a chauffeur, or he didn't treat her like an outsider. Su Mu pursed her lips and said calmly, "Yi Xiangnan, you don't seem that sad." He smiled and subconsciously touched the watch on his wrist with his fingers. He closed his eyes. How should I be sad? Making a scene at the wedding and making a fool of myself? Su Mu didn't say anything. His long and narrow eyes opened a slit, and then he smiled lightly. "You sound a little jealous." No, Sumu said coldly. Yi Xiangnan nodded with understanding. Yes, Mrs. Yi only has lawyership in her heart. Sumu couldn't take it anymore. Yi Xiangnan, don't go overboard. She was about to get out of the car. A strong arm quickly covered the back of her hand, and then he sneered, You haven't even unbuckled your seatbelt. How are you going to get off? How are you going to survive in the upper class if you can't even act? As he spoke, he leaned over. Sumu was stunned. She could feel the faint smell of alcohol. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was refreshing. After about a minute, he finally left. Sumu caressed her lips. Will they think I'm drunk driving? He seemed to chuckle softly. She was a little speechless, but she still started the car. Now she was going to send this drunkard back. If she sent him back, she would have nothing to do with it. Sumu was a little naive. Yi Xiangnan was obviously not in a good mood tonight. He needed someone to accompany him. There was no one else. It was her. The car drove to the villa. It was dark inside, and there was no one. She stopped the car and looked beside her. Hey, Yi Xiangnan. He seemed to be asleep, leaning against the back of the seat with his eyes closed. His breath was a little hot, so the temperature in the car seemed to be very high. Sumu's gaze moved from his face to his Adam's apple. She thought to herself that he was indeed very good-looking. His facial features were even more delicate than a girl's. Coupled with the temperament that he had developed since he was young, it was no wonder that Elder Yi looked at her as if she was a pig. Even if it was just a once-in-a-relationship, in the eyes of ordinary people, young Master Yi would definitely be at a disadvantage. Sumu called him, but he didn't wake up. Sumu reached out to push him. He caught her hand and pressed it against her heart. His voice was unbelievably hoarse. Don't leave tonight. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.